Hello and welcome to episode 270 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Dad FF. Guys, we have seen a crazy amount of dynasty values change. We have been this entire process gone from, in February, started talking rookies and buy lows. And, now all of a sudden we're all the way into almost November. We're, 3/4 of the way through October, and our buys are really starting to pay off. We see these risers. Snoog and I are going to tell you guys that you should be buying, guys that have peaked in value that you should be selling. Break down everything that's been going on. Nobody better to talk it up with than my main man Snoog. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, Dan. This is the time in Dynasty, especially in fantasy football in general, where you should know what you're doing with your team. We're about midway through the season, closing in on that halfway point. Now's the time to make trades, get your team right, buy low on guys, buy high on guys. Just follow the market and be ahead of the market is the key, because the market changes after one game.
Yeah.
Someone goes out there and has done nothing all year and then drops 40, and then all of a sudden they're valued as a top 10 wide receiver. That's just how the market works. So you got to take advantage of those markets and those fluctuations and build a God squad doing that. We've been doing it across 20 leagues for the past few years now, so we're going to help you guys out with that as well.
Yeah, the awesome thing is you start to look at leagues and, 20 now, but you look at the ones that are like 3 years old, every single one of them is 7-0 or 6-1. And the ones that are 2 years old, every single one of them is 5-2 or better. You know what I mean? And then, the ones that I just did, those are the ones where I'm like slowly punting and pushing it in and trying to build these alpha teams. And the way we've done that in the past is we're doing that by assessing talent. We're buying low on, for instance, I have Jordan Love on all my teams because I was buying him for seconds before he was a starter. Now all of a sudden I've moved Jordan Love, Snoog, and he's my first Dynasty Riser. I have him as my Dynasty quarterback 4. All right. You look at what he's done. He's been a top 5 quarterback over the last 10 games. You can't deny it. I mean, I have Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, and Jordan Love over Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and CJ Stroud at this point, because he's put up more points than Patrick Mahomes. He's put up more points than CJ Stroud. He's put up, equivalent points to Jalen Hurts. And when a guy is, a lot of times, if we took him out and we didn't say that he sat behind Rodgers for 2 years, and you insert him into the CJ Stroud year where he started the same amount of games, you would say he's arguably the QB1, because you're like, what he's done from his rookie. But because of that this created a buy low window up until now, and earlier, right before the week started, I was thinking to myself, man, I'm almost ready to move Love above Stroud. And I traded Stroud and Rashee Rice for Love, Saquon, and Derrick Henry. You can't do that anymore. Jordan Love is he belongs in that same tier. You could argue Joe Burrow's there. Snoog, I think honestly it's Josh Allen, Lamar, and then there's Jaden, Love, Mahomes, Hurts, Stroud, Burrow. You might even be able to throw Caleb in there. I mean, it is a great time to be alive to involve yourself in quarterback trades.
Jordan Love is so fun, man. I mean, he is a guy. He's so fun to watch. He's so talented. The arm strength, the arm precision. He's a certified dot thrower. But one of my group chats I have on Twitter, just with a bunch of guys that I've been talking with here for a while now, just in the space, is like 90 of us, but there's probably 15 of us that talk on the daily. And I always say, like, Jordan Love's like handsome Jameis Winston. Like, he's like has a little bit of Jameis Winston in him, and then he looks like Aaron Rodgers, which is like literally Brett Favre. Like, you get that gunslinger, that talented arm thrower that can throw the ball 50 times a game, and then you get, what the heck are you doing out there? Like, he is an absolute pick machine. He's throwing a pick in every single game this season. He's thrown 3 picks in a game. He's thrown 2 picks in a game. If you're better, bet Jordan Love to throw a pick every week, and you're probably gonna win 75% of the time. If he cleans that up, though, like, now we're talking some serious points, because he's probably gonna lose like 30 points, 25. Yeah, he'll probably throw around 15-ish plus picks. Like, he'll probably lose like 30, and sometimes it's -3. He's gonna lose a lot of points to that, and with the fumbles, he's just careless with the football. If he cleans that up, he is absolutely unbelievable. Like, him and CJ Stroud are my 2 favorite young quarterbacks to watch right now, and they're really, really just plugging their way behind Lamar and Josh Allen for me, especially in 6-point passing, because they have the weapons. Jordan Love has like one of the best supporting casts you can ask for. He's got 4 to 5 really good young weapons and a phenomenal offensive-minded head coach. That's all you need. You don't need Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to be good. You need the good coach and the good scheme. They make it easy for the quarterback. The weapons can get open, but if there's no O-line protection, the scheme stinks, it's going to be hard to get you the ball.
He's the only quarterback in the NFL to have multiple touchdown passes every single week. He does have interceptions in every single week, but he's got 2 games of 4 touchdowns, a game of 3, and 2 games of 2. It's going to be electric no matter what. If you could still buy Jordan Love, if you can give up, and I've seen people do it, but I mean, if you can give, I would give him up. I would give up Mahomes straight up for him. Like that's where I'm at right now. Like I think there's a time where Mahomes is going to bounce back. It's not this year, I don't think. But I've moved him all the way up. He's my biggest dynasty riser at the quarterback position, as well as I've moved Drake May. Mayday was here. He has moved from me as QB 18 all the way up to QB 11, Snoog. He's cracked my top 12. I have him now worth the equivalent of the 103 in next year's class. Back-to-back weeks, over 25 fantasy points. I understand that the schedule was a little bit soft, but man, Drake May he's been your guy. You got to be pumped up about that because he has looked really, really good. And I think there's still some money to be made where you could get May plus a first for Daniels or May plus a first for Caleb. And now we've seen it. Just wait till this guy gets some weapons. This could be a top 5 to 8 dynasty quarterback. And a lot of people in the industry were really crapping all over him. But man, wherever you couldn't miss the first 8 picks unless you took Rome Odunze at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Drake May, it brings a smile to my face to see the type of hype he's getting right now because he deserves it. If he went to the Vikings or if he went to the Commanders or the Bears, you'd be talking about him right now like you are with Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. If you put Jaden Daniels on the Patriots, I don't know what happens. He probably looks like a chicken with his head cut off and just runs around like kind of like he has, even though he's a great passer. But like if you just look at the offensive line and the weapons he has, like the Commanders and the Bears have such a better supporting cast. The Bears are on like their own tier of supporting cast, but like the Commanders even have just such a better supporting cast than what Drake May has. It's just crazy that he's had 2 really good games, especially against the Texans. I was at that game in person. One of the picks was definitely not his fault. It was just like the craziest pick that like should not have been a pick. And then the fumble that he had that was a strip sack. He was getting lit up all game long. He had Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter in his face literally the entire game. I watched that dude get hit, drilled like 7 to 8 times, get up, and I was like, he ain't getting up. Dude gets right up, like holding the ribs, hobbling off, comes right back out, standing in the pocket, just delivering. He's tough as nails. He's a great athlete. If they can build something around him and if Kraft can get them, Mayo stinks, the OC stinks. Honestly, get new coaches and build that offense around Drake May. I think, like you said, Dad, my comp for him was Jordan Love. That was my comp, and I really love that comp. I don't know if he's going to get to what Jordan Love is right now, especially not with what he has.
Well, yeah, and
but
that's
a
not
realistic ceiling if he hits that.
Right. Love was kind of like he got to sit there and wait until it was in the right spot, and it was already there. I think get them T. Higgins next year or get him Tet McMillan, he's going to start getting some things to build around. We're talking about that rookie class. I mean, we got my man Brendan Fisher says, are you guys worried about Marvin Harrison Jr.? We talked about it a little bit last show. He's moved down to wide receiver 6 on Keep Trade Cut. I've moved him even lower on my actual dynasty rankings. You guys, if you guys want the most in-depth dynasty rankings, Snoog and I put out our rankings. I updated every single one in my top 50 wide receivers, my top 50 running backs, my top 24 quarterbacks, 48 quarterbacks and top 24 tight ends Monday morning. It was all done. It puts you in that spot. And we have them broken down into tiers where they have values. And right now, I have moved Marvin Harrison to my wide receiver 9. And I think that we're at a spot here where he could be a screaming buy, or we could be in an area where this is your last chance to really get some really good value. So I'm going to say a player. You say you'd rather Marv or that player. You ready?
Yep.
Nico Collins.
Nico.
AJ Brown.
I'm contending AJ Brown if I'm rebuilding Marv.
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett.
Drake London. It's close. Brian Thomas Jr.
I'm taking Marv over London solely
But
because
that's where I have him at
Tyler
9, but
versus
he's
Kirk Cousins because
he's
we don't know what the Falcons quarterback looks like in 2 years.
he's now in that same tier as Brian Thomas Jr., Puka Nacua, and Drake London. And then now if you believe in that talent, you buy in. And Xavier Lopez says he just offered Marvin Harrison Jr. and 2 firsts for CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown. He almost took it. Man, I was gonna say I would be okay giving Marvin a first for CD still. I would give Marv straight up for AJ Brown if I'm contending because I think you're going to get those points. There are very few guys that I'm really willing to still tear off. If I can give up Marv in a late first for Malik Neighbors, I'm doing it. Malik Neighbors is my wide receiver 4. I would do it for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like that's kind of where you're at. You don't want to tear off this Snoog where I see some people's trading Marv for, like Lad McConkey in a first. Like you're just not doing that. It has to be something premium. Marv is still valued, in my opinion, at that same area as the 101 next year. I think I'd rather have Junty than Marv right now, depending on landing spot and everything like that. And, a lot of people talk about, would you rather have Marv or the 101? The answer is always going to be the 101 because the 101 is not pigeonholed into, you might not need a wide receiver, you might not want Marv, but everybody wants the 101. And that's really why that really holds its value. On that same token, Brian Thomas Jr. has to be the biggest dynasty riser at the wide receiver position. Real quick, Jeremy just put this up here. Marv or Bowers, please stop. It's Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is just honestly dominating the league. He is arguably, I was trying to talk about in a 1 quarterback league, how many players do you want over Brock Bowers? Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, Neighbors, B. Gibbs, Bijan. He's top 10.
Yeah, he's the first round starter picking 1 quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, a lot of people are saying sell. This is just fake. You and I were like, dude, you got to have Brian Thomas Jr. He's going to, he produced 17 touchdowns last year. He's someone that's got elite level speed. This is what you guys are going to want. Then he gets drafted by the Jaguars and people are like, maybe it's not what we wanted. That is what we wanted. Like, he is literally balling out. I have moved to Dynasty wide receiver 11, and I'm having a hard time not going. Keep Trade Cut has him all the way up at 8. They have him above Garrett Wilson, above Drake London, and I think they have him over A.J. Brown at this point. I'm not there yet, but this is why insulated trades are so important. In week 2, I traded Devonta Smith and a second for Brian Thomas Jr. and a first. You got to find those guys that you believe in. You got to, invest in them. And now all of a sudden, even if that's a late first, that's going to be a huge win because Brian Thomas Jr., that's why insulated trades have just become so popular. You're going to win twice. You know what I mean? So you really got to go after Brian Thomas Jr. At this point, are you buying or selling? Like, what would you have to do? I mean, would you rather have Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr. in the 105?
PTJ.
What?
Nah.
110.
Then
110, then it's Neighbors, right? Yeah. What about if you're tearing up? I mean, would you rather have T. Higgins and a late first or Brian Thomas Jr.?
T. Higgins and a late first.
I have moved T. Higgins all the way up to my Dynasty wide receiver 16, and I don't think I'm done yet. Like, he is someone that both of these guys, you look at the show that we did 2 months ago, and we said, who are your biggest locks to increase in value? We had Drake May. We had Brian Thomas Jr. We had Kenneth Walker. We had T. Higgins. We had Rashee Rice. And like almost every single guy on that episode, and they went up in value. And it was just a matter of like, this is what we're trying to do, is just picking those next guys before they hit off.
T. Higgins is really good because he's one of those high-powered number 2s that can be a number 1 in an offense that is horrible. Like this Bengals offense or this Bengals team is horrible, but their offense is elite. Joe Burrow's playing great football right now. They're playing from behind a lot. They're in a lot of close games. They got to throw the football. They can't run the ball. It's literally the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins show. Hot take, both of them finished top 12. Like, I think that's a very good possibility. I haven't checked the Bengals schedule. Let me check real quick. I know they got Philly this week. That's going to be a shootout. Then they got Vegas. They're going to smoke them. Then they got the Ravens shootout. Then they got the Chargers. And then the playoff schedule is kind of gross. It's Tennessee, Cleveland, and Denver. But, like, those are all bad teams that are winnable games for them. They got Dallas in week 14. Like, I think T. Higgins is going to have some more big games. I think he's in for a good stretch.
And I think he's, belongs in that top 15. Thomas Shelby Fantasy just says Gibbs are 2 mid-first if you're rebuilding. So I love Gibbs. I mean, I think if you come to me and you say, I'll give you, someone that's like a wide receiver that's in that mid-first plus a mid-first. But I mean, you're looking right now, let's call that 2 mid-first. You're looking at, say, Luther Burden and Quinshon Judkins. Like both those guys could be really strong, but I don't think either of them hit the ceiling of Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is our biggest dynasty. I don't know if we can keep calling him a riser because you and I have had him as our dynasty RB1 for a couple of weeks now. He solidified that because he showed what he can do when Monty misses time. When Monty misses time, this is the most electric running back in football. This is Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson with a good offense. Like this is what we're talking about. This is how you win in dynasty is you get yourself those Jahmyr Gibbs assets.
What's interesting with Gibbs and with that Lions offense is you notice when Gibbs is on the field how much better that Lions offense is with Gibbs versus with Demont. Demont's a good player for damn sure. A very good running back. There's always a place for him in this Lions offense, but it should be more Gibbs 65 to 70% of the time.
They're brilliant about doing it though. They're winning and they're keeping him fresh. You know what I mean? And I think that's the most important thing here is Gibbs is going to be in that role, but when he needs to, dude can ball out. He's going to put up points that are going to win you weeks every single time. And that's really what you're looking for in Dynasty. A couple other guys that I think are really rising up boards that I think you and I alluded to already. Kenneth Walker right now since week 4 has been the RB2 only behind Derrick Henry. 5 touchdowns, which leads the entire NFL. And in fantasy points per game, he's like right there with Derrick Henry. Yet his value, I mean, Snoog, I'm ready to move him over Jonathan Taylor. I'm ready to move him up to my Dynasty RB5. Am I crazy? I've already moved him over A-Chain, McCaffrey, Kyron. I have him one spot behind Jonathan Taylor, and I'm ready to flip-flop.
I already have. I've had him there. I've already had Kenneth Walker. I think he's my 6, right behind Gibbs, Breece, Bijan,
Saquon,
A-Chain, Walker.
See, I got to move A-Chain down. If you can
you can argue Walker over A-Chain.
I mean, let's be honest.
Seahawks offense is good. Like they're good.
A-Chain hasn't done squat without Tua. And if you're an elite level running back, you have to do something. You know what I mean? Like you put the right person in there, and I understand. Yes, I love Devon A-Chain. I'm going to buy him where I can. But if you are in a spot where like Tua might miss time, like Tua might come back and get popped week 1, right? Once he comes back. And now we're back to square one where Devon A-Chain goes from a RB1 to not even an RB2. He hasn't even been in the top 24, Snoog. Where I think Kenneth Walker has had Geno Smith, which is just barely adequate play. And he's been a top 5 running back over the last couple of weeks. And I think he's really separated himself from Zach Charbonnet, who I think is still good, good low-key buy there. Sticking with the running back position, another fantastic week. Joe Mixon has to be shooting up your boards. Joe Mixon has gone from a late first in the offseason or late second in the offseason to a mid-second, when the season started to, he stayed in that mid-second because he got hurt. Now he's an early second, and I might even pay a 26 first for Joe Mixon. I'm not saying I want to, but I think an early second plus. You give yourself an early second and a Devin Singletary or Zach Moss or one of those turd sandwiches you're trying to get off your roster. It feels good, right? Trying to push in there and get yourself a Joe Mixon.
Feels good that we were pounding the drum for Joe Mixon all offseason. And same with Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, and those 3 guys are literally top 5 to 10 running backs, guaranteed.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say 10. I think All right, Carr's back and Olave are back. Kamara's going to be a top 3 to 5 running back again. He's supposed to Shaheed out. It's going to be a lot of checkdowns to Kamara, and he's going to be a workhorse guy that's going to get a ton of touchdowns.
Well, and that's a buy window for Kamara. Once Carr comes back, he's right there. I moved Derrick Henry up to my RB10 in Dynasty. I even said in the offseason that there is a 0% chance that Derrick Henry can increase in value, but he's been that good that my 111 to 112 range in tier 4 is Henry, Cook, Jacobs, Brooks, and Kamara. And I would buy any of them. I mean, I'm not buying Brooks unless it's rebuild. And then even then he's just he's in a weird spot for me. Like really mentally, I think he's worth that, but I wouldn't pay it anywhere. But I mean, if I got to buy a running back, give me Henry, give me Jacobs, give me Kamara, give me Mixon. That's what I want. That's the way I'm going. And if I can tear up off of Jordan Mason, Tony Pollard, David Montgomery, Isaiah Pacheco, James Conner, let's do it. Let's get it done. Just go ahead and get it done. Couple other risers here. I mean, you've got to at least be happy that Nick Chubb was back on the field. It wasn't pretty. It was 11 for 22, salvaged it with a touchdown. But I think the value has gone from outside a second to a late second to right now, Snoog, if you offered me a mid-second, I might sell. But I think he's just going to continue to increase in value and clearly be the focal point. Now that Jameis Winston's involved, we might see some more points. It could be a lot of ugliness, but we're going to see more throwing. We're going to see more opportunities for the defense to have to key in on that passing game. And I think we might actually see Chubb increase in value.
Hope you're right, because Nick Chubb was a guy I was buying for thirds and pennies on the dollars all offseason. I think Chubb's more of a play for next year. But I think he's a freak, man. If there's anyone that's coming back from a leg injury like that the year of, I feel like it's Nick Chubb. So he's a guy that I like buying still. I still think that we should buy low on him.
We got tons of questions. I want to get to as many as possible. Make sure you guys, the only way to really get your question 100% on, or for us to diagnose your roster, is those super chats. You guys keep doing that every single week. I love that. I want to talk about the tight end position because, Snoog, the tight end position has gone from an absolute wasteland to, okay, damn. There's 3 or 4 guys here right now that are really starting to move up the boards. I mean, Brock Bowers, let's be honest, if you could still buy him, just do it. I offered Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews, and a second yesterday, and I got it shot down. You're going to have to be ballsy, but this is a 21-year-old kid who's going to run the tight end position for the next decade. If you can buy him, do it. We were saying everywhere to buy him at that 105, 106. He was slipping to 108 in a lot of places, but the buy window is over for Brock Bowers. The sell window shouldn't exist. Just keep Brock Bowers and ride it out. For me, the biggest dynasty buy is there are 2 tight ends that I'm just buying everywhere. Because let's be honest, it's Bowers, McBride, and Kittle, and that's it. Everybody else makes you upset, except these 2 guys, David Njoku and Tucker Kraft. I think are just flying up the board. I would pay a late first. If you're in 0.75 tight end premium, you could even argue that Mark Andrews is starting to ascend back up. But I'm buying David Njoku anywhere I can. If you play in 0.75, he had 31 fantasy points this past week, 10 targets. He's the guy to own right now. He is that guy where I want Kittle, but I would trade. I offered it straight up Kincaid for Njoku in a league, and it got denied. But I'm like, that's where I'm at. I'm done. I'm done with Kincaid. I'm done with Laporta. I'm trying to tear back to get Njoku, to get Kraft, or even TJ Hawkinson, who once he comes back is going to be a boss.
It's crazy to me that Kincaid they can't get him the ball, and he just hasn't been so
good
because
it doesn't even make sense.
Amazing. Every time he touches the ball, he looks amazing. He catches everything.
Buffalo open. Coaching is really bad right now.
It just drives me crazy that. Just that offense. It's one of those offenses where it's everybody eats. I don't care if you're the best player on the field.
They're not eating much.
Yeah.
It's like you're playing Oregon Trail back in the day and you're playing on bare bones. We are not getting everybody's eating big time. Tucker Kraft.
A good buy low.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can get these guys on the cheap, but I think Tucker Kraft is a point where I'm willing to pay an early second now. He has shown enough. He's tied to Jordan Love. He has had some big time flash weeks. 3 out of the last 4, he's been phenomenal. And the rest of the position really is bothersome to me. So, I mean, this is kind of where I'm at. I'm perfectly on there. I am buying as much Njoku, and I'm buying as much Tucker Kraft as I can as possible. Running back position. I know you're not going to love some of these. These are my biggest risers. Josh Jacobs, since Jordan Love has been back, has looked really good. He had his first receiving touchdown since the Reagan administration. Like, dude, he was, I mean, like, honestly, it's been so long since he had a receiving touchdown. I loved it. He was right on there. I'm also buying in right now. Brian Robinson's value is up, but he's one that's interesting to me, Snoog, because, you take away last 2 weeks, he just 88 yards, but he finished outside the RB 20 spot in both weeks, but completely propped up by touchdowns. He scored in every single week. Sometimes you just got to roll with that because the guy's scoring touchdowns. Other times it's like, is the luck going to run out? So what are you thinking on Robinson right now?
I said this about Brian Robinson preseason. His ceiling is like what Jamal Williams was on the Lions. He's going to score 18 touchdowns.
Jamal scored 15 touchdowns.
He's better than Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
We'll just start with that. But, like, that's the type of role he's in. He's like Jordan Howard on the Bears. I don't know if you remember that. That's my comp as well. 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and you're going to get a guy that's finishing probably outside the top 5.
Jordan Howard was worth a first at one point, and I think this is why when I put...
If you're not catching footballs, your ceiling is extremely capped. And he's literally a guy that relies on a touchdown every week to be an RB1.
Yeah, for sure. Next one, I got a question here from Los Talks Pats on X. George Pickens, Josh Down, Jonathan Brooks, mid-25 first and second for Justin Jefferson. I'm rebuilding, and I would be able to get Jefferson. A lot of you guys are asking about rebuilds, and you end up asking questions of saying, well, I'm getting the most players and the most picks here. And that's not what it's all about. Like, the rebuild process that we teach is 1, you're trying to minimize risk, and 2, maximize rewards. Justin Jefferson is the safest asset in all of fantasy football, period. People have said that about Josh Allen and Mahomes. They've dipped a little bit in value. People have said that about Bijan Robinson and, Breece Hall. They've dipped a little bit in value. Justin Jefferson is not going anywhere for the next 5 to 8 years. Like, he is elite. I'm not selling him for anybody. If the only thing I would do is Malik plus or Chase plus. I'm not even buying CD plus. It's got to be one of those two, unless it is an absolute haul. And even then, it's like, you got to weigh your options, Snoog. Sometimes people are like, oh, I got 4 players for him. How many of them do you start? How many of them are really assets that you're going to be utilizing? So for me, Los, I'm sticking with Jefferson there all day. Again, Fernando Hinojosa says, what plus do you need to move off Nico for Brian Thomas Jr.? Now, that's a good one because I think we get into an insulated trade, but I don't think it's much more than the mid-second, probably even a late second. I don't know. I'm not saying I would sell Nico for that, but what's the difference for you?
I think it's a 1-2 swap.
You think it's a 1-2 swap? I would take Thomas there then.
The difference between being tied to CJ Stroud versus Trevor Lawrence is like extremely big of a difference. I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. can ever get to Nico's ceiling like without that. Like I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a big yardage guy, but it'll be a little tough to score as many touchdowns as like a Nico would score. I don't know. It's actually tough. The more and more I think about it, the more it's like more like that mid-second, like you say, instead of a 1-2 swap. I think it's more of that.
He's the wide receiver 8 on the season. He has 4 touchdowns already.
I'm old enough to remember people saying that his analytics weren't good, so he's not going to be good.
I know. I listened to one person. I listened to the Lad McConkey hype once, and I was like, I'm so upset that I did that. I want to just jump off a bridge.
He was like the most guaranteed one. Like, he was so guaranteed to just be good. Like, it wasn't even like, I don't know why people made it such like a complicated thing with him, but
we keep working on our process. We keep working on that process. Other wide receivers that are, increasing in value. Devonte Adams gets that trade. Week 1 was not a flash for him in that offense, but you got to believe right now that we've been pounding the drum all the time, talking about buying Devonte Adams, buying Mike Evans, who Mike Evans now is out till at least week 11. Stephon Diggs, get yourself, and I think Terry McLaurin belongs in that section now too. I think that was something that I was trying to buy all off season. I think you're drinking a little bit more of the Kool-Aid because he's right there. I mean, he's going to be somebody that wins you weeks. I think right now those are the guys that I'm trying to buy because there are not a lot of mid-level wide receivers. And we talked about T. Higgins is moving up. We talked about, DK Metcalf in shows past, Brian Thomas Jr. But I think it's that middle area that's just kind of staying the same. Like DJ Moore and Zay Flowers. George Pickens got a little bit of an increase. Brandon Ayuk, we're going to do another rebuild episode. He's a prime buy there, but tears the ACL and MCL. That's a bit of a worry. Xavier Worthy's been dipping. Debo's dipping. But then you go down to the lower guys and you're like, okay, Romeo Doubs is on his way up. He's ascending here a little bit. And you got, guys that are Jawan Jennings and guys that are going to get an opportunity. So how are you navigating that wide receiver position right now? Because in the beginning of the year, we're like, oh, this thing is like 25 deep. And now we're like, the middle class is disappearing from the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I'm trying to tier up as much as I can, especially in Dynasty. And I'm really, what I found with a lot of my successful teams right now is I always have one or two of a Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, like a Nico Collins, a JJF. Like I'm always stacking two of those guys on all my top rosters. And then I'm really, really, really heavy on Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Devonte Adams, those type of guys, and Amari Cooper. Like I'm loaded up on those guys. I'm like 3 or 4 deep, so that I have.
And what
them.
People they don't realize that takes time.
Heavy this year on all my teams.
You can't do it right off the bat, right? Like you gotta take your time. You gotta go ahead and build that over time. And a lot of people are trying to leave a startup with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, and you're like, the rest of your team's gonna be crap. Like you can't trade up and do those kind of scenarios. But you look at
most of my rosters are very RB heavy right now because of the discount we were getting on Mixon, Henry, Kamara, James Conner, these type of guys. So what I've been doing is a lot of my leagues are 3 wide receiver, 2 running back, super flex, tight end, and then 2 flex. So a lot of the times I have a lot of Jordan Mason too, just from waivers. So a lot of the times this year I've been running, like I have a lot of Gibbs, Kamara, Mixon, these guys. I'm running four running backs in the lineup, and then I have like 2 stud receivers and a Diggs, or like a DJ Moore or a Kupp or one of these guys in that 3rd wide receiver spot. And it's just been really, really, really good I have a lot of first place teams and a lot of teams that look like they're going all the way. So I'm excited for this year. I should make a lot of money, hopefully. Have a lot of success.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to make sure you guys are checking us out on YouTube, checking us out on the Discord. There's been a lot of great things. A lot of people really saying, I had one guy reach out and he's like, Dad, last year before I joined the Discord, I was winning 30 to 35% of my leagues across the board, like not winning my leagues, winning my matchups. He's like, since I've joined up with you guys, I'm winning 65 to 70 right off the bat. Those are huge things because you're going from, you're in a community where you're making friends, you're getting guys, you're getting information. But when you talk about what really is important is he's just doubled his win percentage from what he was in years past. And then we're talking about in Dynasty, not redraft, in Dynasty. So to go from 30% wins to 70% wins in 1 year just from being in the Discord, that's a boss move. That's like you're putting yourself in money contention instead of just floundering there and just playing in the middle. And a lot of you guys are really starting to get that. I worked today. I worked an 8-hour shift. I got done. There was 91 DMs. Like we're cranking in there so much, Snoog. Guys are talking shop 24/7. It is literally the best place to be at. I know you've been answering questions like crazy, and it's just a really rewarding thing that now that it's a year old, that people are starting to be like, damn, look at how much money I'm going to make instead of just sitting back there and being like, you know what? Hopefully I win this week. Now they're like, I got a plan. We're going to win this thing. And Los was just asking that. He said the Discord is 10,000% worth it. So, I mean, $5 a month. Seriously, you're looking at like 20 cents a day to get fantasy advice. So you can't beat that.
Absolutely. That's how we do it. We win championships. We take advantage of insulated trades, and we crush the rebuild process, and that's how you do it. And it starts with the Discord. You get all our trade rankings, our trade advice, our rankings, our access to our DMs, all of our chats we've built out in there. We're building a community there. links in both of our bios. You sign up through the Patreon to get access to the Discord, and then you'll get the invite from Dad via email right after you sign up. And that's how we do it. So it's super, super sweet and easy. Discord, we're in there all the time. We do giveaways with signed jerseys and fun stuff like that as well. You get access to all of our Smash Accept startup leagues. So it's fun.
Shipping out the DJ Moore jersey tomorrow to SoCal Saluski. He's a Bears fan. He was so excited. I'm excited for him. You know what I mean? And we're going to try to do another one around Christmas time. We're really just trying to do that. You know, you have all of our sections there, buys, sells, feet picks with Snoog, you know, all the stuff you're really looking for. Maybe some travel advice with Dad. You know, we got you covered. Dating advice. But no, we've really been hitting that hard. Really love the support that you guys have given us. We wanted to bring you a Risers show. We're trying to do 2 to 3 shows a week or more because you guys keep craving for more. So we just wanted to thank you guys for all the support. Thank you for what you guys have been doing. If you got any questions, I'm at Dynasty Dad FF. He's at FFSnoog. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the process.